will attempt to go through the furrow of digital transformation, especially as it affects law firms and the entire legal ecosystem. And we'll also examine a couple of ways through which data synergy can help improve the legal practice, help drive revenue better, and of course, effective and efficient customer delivery, which in turn leads to growth and improvement. So we'll just delve right into it. If there are any questions as we commence, please feel free to type them in the chat box, and we'll take them at the end of the session. Thank you. Looking at an introduction to digital transformation, as it were, we'll also attempt a look at how we can create a digital transformation strategy. We'll also examine some of the benefits of digitization. Then also look at some ways through which the law firms can institutionalize the culture of digitalization. Then finally, we'll look at how we could leverage data synergy for improved processes and performance. So setting the context here is a little table of statement of objective and purpose, what we intend to achieve, what our expected outcomes should be from this exercise. So of course, this knowledge sharing session is an initiative of Nubianette Consulting. It's designed as a necessary step in guiding law firms towards the next frontier of their business and increasing the digital awareness of their people. The objectives are to understand the concept of digital transformation, the underlying assumptions, and of course the presuppositions rather. Then also to understand the design thinking of the digital transformation strategy, understand the flow of the analysis, and also develop the capacity to replicate some of this think tank flow in boxes. Then also to gain insights into the benefits of digitization with an attendant effect on organizational processes and methods. Then finally, to understand how to institutionalize and then through the culture of digitalization amongst our people. Some of the expected outcomes, some of which Ali earlier mentioned, after the exercise, especially as it relates to digitalization and digitization. To understand digital transformation as it applies to the operational improvements of law firms and the data they create and generate. Then we'll also hope that at the end of this exercise, you'll be able to understand data synergy through the transformation and storage of law firms' data in digital formats, and to appreciate the mileage that can be gained in terms of process refinements, speed, and quality of service. And of course, finally, to understand how the commencement of digital transformation journey and the key importance of organizational journey. So we'll just jump right into it. We'll just go through a little brief introduction into digital transformation, as it were. Let me quickly say the term digital transformation and the crux of several management discourse and what it really means for decades. What does it really mean? So we thought to assemble just a couple of keywords, a couple of key characteristics that can be associated with digital transformations. Now, of course, digital transformation is the reinstitutionalizing of a digital culture in an organization. Simply put, basically. Now, when we talk about digital transformation, we're talking about our products and services, business entirety, the entirety of the business and the workforce. For the digital products, we're talking about capabilities, platforms, marketing and advertising and activities, and how we express, represent ourselves and how we are perceived out there. All of those digital activities that are involved in perception management, image management, and branding. Then for the business, digital business, the opportunities that lies out there, the opportunities that technology portrays gives us the enablement of technology and the reach it grants us in the legal ecosystem to considering that we can advertise, the reach it grants us to be able to identify and be known and be seen, you know, especially by our work and our footprints. And of course, strategy and disruption. Then for the digital workforce, the practices, how those practices in the law firms, it's talent speaks to personnel, staff with digital transformation. So these are the things that we seek to achieve transformation on. These are the pillars on which we seek to achieve digital transformation on. Now, more keywords associated words with digital transformation. Now, usually, or oftentimes, what you see is management's partner in initiating a strategy, business strategy, strategy. And then there's a disconnect with the people, there's a detachment. So what they want to do in terms of reach, in terms of promotions, in terms of attracting clients, in terms of the engineering processes. But then there's a major disconnect with the people, So who is of course number two, because they're the most important asset to the organization. So any transformation of any kind has to trickle down from the strategy and the organizational objective to the people. And then of course processes. So digital transformation process involves a total reengineering of the processes to ensure optimal leverage, on technology. So you will agree with me that all the way from strategy and objective to people, to put the bane of every digital transformation as well, really, because organizations have to invest in systems and platforms that are used as working tools, to facilitate those processes by the people to achieve the strategy of the company. So it's a closely knit web closely knit web of processes basically, and then the culture of the organization. So these five pillars represents the areas that information journey. You initiate the policies at the board and the management level, at the partners level, and then you seek ways to make sure those objective trickles down in terms of information to the people, and then there's a carry along, there's an inclusion from their end, and then it has a multiplier effect on the processes, the total re-engineer of the processes, the systems, how things are done, and then the infrastructure, the tools that will be used, to leverage this transformation, and of course, finally, the culture, which is the way of life of the organization. These are the five major means that the transformation journey should consider when it's beginning. So this slide basically talks about this. Now you see the customer is at the heart of all of this. The customer, the clients, because we reckon that we're all in business to provide service for the customer, and in exchange, we get rewarded monetary benefits. That's how an organization grows. It's really about evolving into a different way of operating as a business. So it's not something you run out, of the project management office. It's not a project that has a timeline, a 1, 2, 3 year timeline. Say, I just will have this project 5 months and we're done. It's an unending, process, an unending journey, that speaks among these 5 key domains. You see, customer is there, value is there. So customer begins it, value ends it. So in other words, how do to the first bullet being customer? So all those 3 motivating and ideas generation speaks to how we can better deliver value to customers. And by the way, the concept of value, again, has been a major point of discourse in several business schools, and of course, consensus opinion has it that value however you want to look at it, whether you're in the legal ecosystem, whether you're in manufacturing, whatever.
Hello, Emmanuel. It appears your audio is not really good. Probably the network.
Value is expectation. Value is what the business seeks to provide to customer, the way of options and the dynamic behaviors. And Ali, please confirm you can hear me clearer now, please.
Much better now.
Much better now. All right, thank you. Did we get what I said on this slide? Or I don't know at what point my audio went bad. Was it the last 5 seconds, 10, 20?
I would say 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I was basically doing an encapsulation of the interplay between customers, competition, data, innovation, and value. And I said, if you look at that 5 matrix, the 5 matrix, it speaks to the beginning of it is customers. We are all in business because of the customers. And the last one of those in the bracket is value. So all the information in the middle, the competition, the data, and the innovation, all come together to ensure we give a delightful experience in terms of value to the customers. So how we conduct competition analysis and comparative analysis as to what clients, as to what our contemporaries are doing, as to what the trends are in the industry and global best practices. And then bring all of those data down, mine all of those data, generate actionable intelligence and insights from those data such that management can make informed decisions that will better the business. And then, of course, that would dovetail into innovation, generating new ideas, new ways of doing things, improving on where we are, and devising optimal ways of delivering service and delightful experiences to our clients. So this flow chart here, this basically is an interplay of all these characteristics I mentioned. from how we can collaborate amongst ourselves and our customers to give them a delightful experience such that they can engage us effectively, assess, get better access to us, do all the competitive analysis and all the data. So this is an interplay basically on digital transformation and what the journey speaks to. So we'll delve straight into the next slide. How do we create, a digital transformation strategy? Because of course, the first step after understanding what digital transformation is to know how we can commence the digital transformation journey. So how do we commence the digital transformation journey? How do we create this? We have to create a strategy. Now, we said technology is a potential source of disruption, and is a part of a strategic solution in a context of solving challenges. Now, if you look at this chart here, you will see that a digital disruption, is a digital disruption flowchart, by the way. You see it's technology-induced, customer-induced, ecosystem-induced, and innovation-induced. So you see customer is there, technology is there, ecosystem, which is our operating environment, is there, and innovations and ideas is also there. So of course, we have to ask ourselves the question, are we being disrupted? Have we been disrupted? Our practices, our operating methodologies, are they in tandem with global best practices? Are there competitors that are going ahead of us? So all of those foreplay of those information has to come into play. There are some basic questions you have to ask at the planning stage, to ensure that you have all the variables together right before you begin initiating that strategy. Now, we've talked about some of the salient questions to ask. 3, fundamental questions to ask as we begin our digital transformation journey. Why do we need to transform? So that question has to be answered. It's a rhetorical question, by the way. What do we need to transform? Do we need to transform our people? Do we need to transform our processes? Do we need to transform our platforms and our systems? Do we need to transform our culture? So what do we need to transform? And then how can we transform? The how can we transform basically speaks to what are the essential elements that we require to ensure that we transform from where we are to where we want to be. So there's often a lack of clear purpose, for people, processes, and purpose, but these are key to some of the things that are need to be put into consideration when commencing a digital transformation journey. And we also said here that 44% of organizations say their organizations are preparing adequately for disruptions to come. So that means 44% of, and this is a global index, by the way, 44% of these organizations have been able to identify where they are, where they want to be, the things they need to get to where they want to be. In the next slide, we'll talk about some of the detailed analysis that we need to do to establish how we can commence. So some of the steps in building a digital transformation plan, strategy, we first have to do an internal analysis and then an external environmental analysis. So analysis has to be conducted before we can roll out a plan. Now, for the external analysis, we have to look at the first and most critical factor here, and that is resources. Now, the internal analysis of an organization's resources is the final stage of the auditing process. It creates the information and analysis required and necessary for law firms to identify the key assets and competencies upon which a strategic position can be built. We have to explore the nature of our assets, our competencies and capabilities, mainly among our personnel. So this is clearly an audit of saying, where are we in terms of our capabilities, in terms of our assets, our personnel, our competencies. And of course, then it moves straight on to identifying the elements of our innovation audits, and then use various auditing tools to facilitate this process. In particular, the portfolio models and the SWOT analysis. So for every business that conducts, that looks at being in business for a long time, and for business continuity, you have to consistently and periodically, conduct SWOT analysis to check your strengths, and then look for ways to beef up your strengths. You check your weaknesses and look for ways to strengthen them. You also look for opportunities in the market, in your operating environment, and look for ways to take advantage, seize those opportunities, and then, of course, identify your threats and seek out ways to mitigate those threats. So all this internal analysis speaks to where are we. Now, the next basically is the organizational culture. The first we talked about is the resources. The resources speaks to infrastructure. The resources speaks to capabilities. The resources also speaks to personnel in terms of human resources. Now we're talking of organizational culture. These two analysis is critical for commencing a digital transformation journey. Now, the two components of an organizational of the internal analysis are, as I said, the resources and the organizational culture. Now, we have to do an attitude survey, and the technique of the metaphorical description. Then we also have to do basically 5 and 8 points analysis of our teamwork, the resources involved, challenges, the freedom. Now for teamwork, we'll be looking at the level of commitments, of staff to current work, the level of trust between team members, and the willingness to help each other around technology issues and challenges. So that has to be evaluated and audited. The amount of access to appropriate resources in terms of facilities, staff, finance, and information. And the challenges involved in the work undertaken in terms of the speed with which tasks can be accomplished and completed. So this speaks to optimality of our platforms and systems. And the amount of controls individuals have over their work and ideas, and also privileges and rights management. So who has access to what documents, who can view what, at what level, version control, rights control, and all those privilege management. Then we also have to look at managerial support in terms of clear goals, provision of digital tools, and infrastructure to aid work. So we have to ascertain where we are on this, because of course, without having an optimal set of tools, we cannot be talking about digital transformation if people have laptops that still has version 2002 applications. Then of course, level of senior management supports and encouragements of creativity, and the structures necessary for developing creative ideas and implementing them. So management has to institutionalize, a reward system, be it a monetary reward system, be it a perception reward system, some way to be able to encourage creative work, because it's creativity, it's ideation, it's innovation that leads to digital transformation. These are the ways, an organization can sustainably build a robust pool of innovative ideas that will help in transforming the business, really. Then the level of recognition and type of reward given for innovative ideas. Then factors such as collaborative and cooperative atmosphere, the amount of shared vision in the organization. This speaks principally, to communication. How well is management able to communicate those policies, those objectives, those strategic directions we intend to achieve in terms of transforming the business digitally? How well is this information being able to be disseminated, to the staffage and the people? So this internal analysis we talked about earlier, we talked about the resources, and now we talked about the organizational culture, which looks at these 8 major pointers, really. Then after the internal analysis, we have to do an external analysis. This is basically about in terms of practice management, in terms of delivery, in terms of completion timeline, in terms of how services to delight. We have to evaluate the global best standards prevalent in office management, document management, and of course, relationships. Rather. Now, what is the trend in the legal ecosystem as regards leveraging technology? And we also have to identify client expectations for technology-enabled services. What are clients' expectations, especially in post-COVID-19? For specialist services such as the legal services, clients will be looking at a situation where they can remotely engage, have access, and initiate and consummate their transaction without a physical interface, with people. So these are some of the client expectations that are normal. And we have to examine the moves and actions of competition in line with major identified trends in the industry. In line with major trends in the industry. So this also speaks to competition analysis. It has to be periodic, it has to be sustainable, and it has to be information generating. Now we'll move straight into benefits of digitization. Now let me quickly make a distinction here. Digital transformation.
Now we depend.
Ali, I think there's a problem. Someone's mic is on.
Go ahead. It's been taken care of.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so digital transformation sits on digitalization. Now, there's a distinction between digitalization and digitization, right? So digitalization is enthroning a digital culture amongst our people, while digitization is converting our paper documents to digital formats. Right, so digitalization is the umbrella, while digitization is a component of digitalization. So digitization, as it were, underpins digitalization. You cannot achieve digital transformation through digitalization without the benefits of digitization. So in simple words, digitization is converting hard copy documents to soft copies, basically digitizing all of your data with regards to documents and documents. So this brings us to electronic documents management system. Now, this is digitization. This, remember I said digitization underpins digitalization. So digitalization cannot be achieved without digitization, right? So a document management system basically is designed to organize business files and records digitally, whether they started out in paper form or were generated by software applications. Paper files, are first converted to electronic format by scanning, and then this provides a more compact means of storage, a universal access for retrieval, and of course, higher levels of data security and privacy, as well as versioning. A company-wide document management system controls digital files that are generated directly through applications, such as the ones we use in our offices, Microsoft Suites, and all the accounting softwares and all of that. Then managing those documents enables quicker access to and greater command over business information. Now, with a documents management system, the flow and access of documents throughout an organization can be designed and controlled. Now, given the large, expenses and inconveniences of paper documents, maintaining them in digital format will lead to a substantial increase in efficiency and operation cost reduction. Now, we reckon the legal ecosystem is a heavily centric, a paper-centric environment. All the documents churn, the storage of them, viewing, retrieving them, accessing them, and of course, sharing them amongst your network. This has been a point of concern, for major law firms. So that's why we're speaking to a document management system. So we'll dive right straight into what are the benefits of a document management system. The first I want to talk about is automatic audit trail. This is tops for us, considering the industry in which you play in, where privacy is paramount. So we know you have to adhere to strict compliance to set guidelines in terms of versioning, who has what assets and what rights to view XYZ document, who worked on this document, how does it pass the document on to the supervisor for review, and then it's passed back. So all of those processes, there's an automatic audit trail when you have an electronic document management system in place. And of course, it goes without saying, time saving, vis-a-vis the amount of time you would spend going through a clutter of hard copy, probably dog-eared, damp, one of the correspondences of your clients, as against, it being right there in your Microsoft environment, just a click away, and then you can access those documents. So the time saving is really a no-brainer. It goes without saying. Then security. Now we're talking of data protection, talking of data security. All of the environmental hazards and acts of God that can affect the security of your documents if they are housed in paper formats, the fire, the storm, and all those the thefts, all those hazards that are associated with them, of course, are being taken care of when you have an electronic document management system saved on your premises, and then, of course, in some instances, also saved in the cloud. There's total security with that. There's better customer service. Customers, we mentioned the concept of value speaks principally to expectations met. What do clients want? Clients want their issues resolved timely, in a timely manner. So if their issues are resolved, and it took significantly larger timeline than they expected, you have really provided value, really, because the expectations were not especially met, right? So better customer service means you can provide service to your client, because you can easily access their correspondences, you can easily share amongst your network, and then the timeline within which your transaction turnaround time is significantly reduced, and then you can provide better service to the client. And accessibility. Accessibility would rank as one of the top benefits for the document management system, because problems law firms face is accessing documents. Right? So correspondences and litigation documents from 10 years ago, how do you access them today if they are still in hard copy? So someone probably has to take a whole day, go down to the archives, probably wear the PPE, protective equipment, and start digging through with all the hazards and all of that. All of those hazards and that timeline can be saved, if these documents are easily accessed because they've been stored in digital formats. And then simplicity, absolutely, simplicity. The business process is significantly simplified. And then finally, easy storage. Now, storing paper documents, of course, for law firms that have to keep most of those documents, and your document retention policies are not as low as those in other industries. So you have to probably pay for a larger space to warehouse these documents physically. You have to have right storage and temperature and handling, maintenance, operations, and all that. All of that can be saved because you can store these documents on your servers locally. You can store these documents in the cloud remotely, such that you have a backup, a system. So these are some of the key benefits, major benefits of having a document management system. It's only when you have a documents management system that that means you digitize your paper document, that you can begin to say, yes, we are transforming digitally. We are heading towards becoming an efficient, an effective organization. Now, just take us through the phases, of the documents management system. Now, of course, the phase one is scanning of historic documents. Now, the scanning of historic documents sounds pretty simple, but it involves a very cumbersome and very tedious set of processes, which commences from collection and classification of various records. By classification, we mean classifying the documents according to an established parameter. For instance, litigation files. For instance, correspondences from clients. For instance, meeting of partners. So all of those classifications are done pre-scanning, before scanning. Now, the next step will be to remove those documents that are in hardback and file folders neatly. While all of that is being done, there's a particular asymmetry that's followed, such that after the removal, the placing back follows the same process, and such that there are no mix-up. And then the actual scanning, which is the image capturing. And then most times these documents have been in the archives for a long while, maybe documents generated in the 90s. You see that the prints are not so legible, so those during the scanning process, an image enhancement is conducted such that those prints that are moist and years of exposure to non-temperate weather has acted on can be enhanced for legibility purposes. Then, very importantly, is the indexing of those scanned documents. The indexing is probably, not probably, the indexing is arguably the most important part of the whole scanning exercise, because retrieval of documents subsequently depends on the chronology, the cataloging, the sequencing, and the indexing pattern of those scanned documents, right? So all the process of indexing those documents involve, sitting down with priority department heads, and document owners and process owners to understand how they would rather retrieve a document, because indexing of the document is a major factor in retrieval 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Even after the critical industry, the critical heads of departments have left, how would those documents, be retrieved? Key properties associated with the documents, key notes associated with documents. So indexing is the next stage. Thereafter, there's a quality control, because of course, before engaging on this exercise, the law firm would have said, these are some of the controls we want to make sure that this document passes. So quality control is done at the end of this exercise. So that's the first phase, which is encapsulated by the scanning of historic document. And the second phase is the deployment of the documents management software. Now, after scanning those documents, you have the liberty of either putting them in a hard drive, probably plugging it into your servers and being able to retrieve them, through your normal network folders. You also have the liberty to take it a step further, by investing in procuring a documents management software. The beauty of a document management solution can actually be seen and felt through the use of a documents management software. So that gives you several licenses through which several levels of staff can access documents, read and write features, editing, versioning, audit trail. All those beauties, all those beautiful benefits we mentioned are mostly premised on the deployment of a software system with which you can view those documents, retrieve those documents, share those documents among the network, and significantly reduce transaction turnaround time. And then the third phase of the system or the solution basically is the physical archiving. For law firms that are constrained by space, this is also an option for them, especially considering your document retention policies. So this is basically the cycle, documents management cycle. between the time it's moved, you can see them in paper format, then they are digitized, and then deploy a software with which you manage them, then move the physical documents to a proper temperature-friendly, maintained facility for storage. And then those soft copy documents can be easily retrieved, accessed, viewed, and shared. Leveraging data synergy for improved performance. So I know my time into a one-time offer we have at Greenwich Registrars and Data Solutions for attendees of this webinar, really. So we, Greenwich Registrars and Data Solutions, we offer a document management solution. This here, you can see what our existing prices are for these services, both for the scanning of the documents and deployment of the software, which are basically licensed, cloud licenses and on-premises licenses. You can see the prices and what the discounts are for attendees of this webinar. Ali has access to these slides, so he will probably share them after this for your view, your attention. As I said, I work with Greenwich Registrars and Data Solutions, where we have digital footprints across 6 states in the country. So we basically have, we're at Modupe House at Yaba, and I'll be glad to take your questions, observations, comments, contributions. I hope it has been a rewarding exercise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, kindly include them in the chat box. And it's been quite an insightful journey going through all of the various sessions today. Thank you, Emmanuel. And right now, I'm going to start the polls, as I mentioned earlier. So the first poll, asks, how do you store and retrieve data from a Microsoft Office environment?
Okay, thank you, Ali. So,
Well, the poll is ongoing.
Okay.
So the question is on the poll.
Okay, I've seen that. Okay.
So we're getting feedback on that. Well, Emmanuel, if you'd like to make a comment on around storage or retrieval of data from Microsoft environment, you can go ahead to contribute that as well. As it concerns,
thank you, Ali.
As it relates to the service you deliver.
Yes, so we support a software called M-Files. M-Files is a documents management software that is integrated to most legacy Office suites, such as Microsoft Office. Now, upon deployment of that software in your environment, retrieval of documents from a Microsoft environment become pretty easy. I'll just give you a simple and classic example. Say, after we've digitized your documents, we have all of it in a drive, we install it on your servers, right? Now, say Mr. Ali is working on his system and he wants to pull up a litigation file of Adegbenro and Co. that happened in 1994, right? If he's working in a Microsoft Outlook environment, just between where you have your copy and the paste, there will be a blue icon in between the both of them that has written M-Files. Between the copy and the paste, up on the on the upper where you have the icons, Once Ali clicks on that, on the M files folder, on the M files folder, it takes him into the repository, the repository of saved documents. And then there's a search icon where he can type any property, anything he can remember concerning that document, either the year the litigation took place, the parties involved, the lawyer that handled the case, the court, the magistrate, any property at all he can recall concerning that particular file or folder. The moment he's typing it in, just the way you have in Google, you are typing in something, it suggests to you, because the solution has artificial intelligence, and of course because there's a repository. As he's typing in Adegbem, it suggests the closest names to them, and then within a couple of seconds, he sees the folder he's searching for. He clicks on it. If he's attaching or sending within that same Microsoft Outlook environment or Excel environment, so whether you are in a Microsoft Word environment, Excel environment, Outlook environment, you always see that little blue icon on your screen, which is a repository of all your documents.
Great. So we'll move on to the next slide now.